August 17, 1944, northern France near Falaise. The GMC CCKW sat abandoned on the roadside, its canvas cover torn by shrapnel, engines still warm. The American convoy it belonged to had been caught in a Luftwaffe strafing run, one of the increasingly rare occasions when German aircraft actually appeared over France. Wehrmacht mechanics from the 276th Infantry Division approached cautiously, examining what the Americans called a deuce and a half. "Get the Hopfeld Weibel," one mechanic called. "This one's intact." What they discovered over the next hour would confirm suspicions that had been growing since Normandy. Germany had already lost this war, not on the battlefield, but in the factories of Detroit. The truck was massive compared to German vehicles at 212 tons rated capacity. It dwarfed the standard Opel Blitz. Yet the mechanics immediately noticed something unexpected. It wasn't complicated. The six-cylinder engine sat openly accessible with parts clearly labeled in English. The mechanic opened the toolbox mounted on the running board. Inside were standard wrenches, pliers, and a manual printed on quality paper with detailed illustrations. The soldiers exchanged glances. For years, German engineering prided itself on complexity and precision. Yet here was a machine that emphasized simplicity, durability, and rapid repair. One mechanic whispered almost to himself, "If only our factories made things like this." And in that moment, they understood. Not every battle was fought with guns. Some were won in factories, in assembly lines, in the minds of engineers who thought ahead. This wasn't just a truck. It was a symbol, a messenger of industrial supremacy that the Wehrmacht could no longer challenge. By the way, where are you watching this video from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from viewers worldwide. And if you want to see more untold WW2 stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. The mechanics circled the GMC truck cautiously, their hands brushing over the cool metal of the hood and fenders, taking in every detail. Unlike the Opel Blitz or other German vehicles, this truck was designed to be serviceable by nearly anyone, anywhere. Every bolt, every lever, every component was labeled clearly. Even the engine, normally a cramped tangle of wires and pistons on German trucks, was laid out openly. "Heavy, but simple," muttered Unteroffizier Klaus Weber, leaning over the engine bay. He traced his fingers along the cooling pipes. "I could fix this in under an hour with half the tools we carry for our vehicles." His comrade Franz nodded slowly. "It runs like a dream. No fuss, just built right." The toolbox mounted on the running board was another revelation. The tools were standard issue for the truck, not specialized instruments requiring weeks of training. And the manual, printed on thick, high-quality paper, laid out procedures in plain English, with diagrams showing assembly, maintenance, and even troubleshooting. No cryptic schematics. No excessive complexity, just practical instructions designed to keep the vehicle running, no matter the battlefield. The mechanics began experimenting, turning wrenches, adjusting the carburetor, and testing the brakes. Each time the truck responded perfectly. When they rolled the GMC over muddy terrain nearby, it carried 2 tons of supplies effortlessly, its suspension absorbing bumps and potholes with ease. German trucks struggled in the same conditions, often needing multiple men to push them free. As they continued inspecting, it became clear why Allied convoys could sustain operations even under constant attack. It wasn't just the soldiers. It wasn't just the weapons. It was the machines themselves. They were reliable, simple to repair, and mass-produced at a scale Germany could not match. The thought struck Klaus like a hammer. This war is being won in Detroit, not Berlin. Franz whistled low, a mixture of awe and despair. Imagine what they could do if every truck ran like this. For a moment, the group laughed, but it was hollow laughter, tinged with realization. They knew that every GMC truck captured or destroyed represented only a tiny fraction of the American industrial might. Thousands more were rolling off assembly lines each month, spreading across Europe, carrying men, weapons, and supplies into territories Germany could no longer hold. "By the way," Klaus said suddenly, turning to the camera if anyone were watching, "where are you watching this from? Let us know in the comments. We want to hear from every corner of the world." He grinned, shaking his head. "And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You'll want to see what happens next when German mechanics tried to copy this design." As the day wore on, the mechanics marked notes in their journals, sketching parts and making mental calculations. They discussed the impossibility of replicating such vehicles with the limited materials and methods available in Germany. The GMC was a marvel of logistics and engineering, one that could run, carry, and survive where German vehicles faltered. By the end of the afternoon, the group climbed back onto their own trucks, glancing one last time at the abandoned GMC. They knew it wasn't just a vehicle, it was a symbol, a message, a warning. Germany had been losing the war long before the Allies stormed Normandy, and this single truck standing quietly on a French roadside was proof. By the next morning, word of the captured GMC truck had spread through the 276th Infantry Division. Soldiers and mechanics alike gathered around the roadside, inspecting, debating, and marveling at what they had found. The sheer scale of the truck alone was intimidating. At 212 tons rated capacity, it could haul more than twice what the Opel Blitz managed, and it did so effortlessly. Its six-cylinder engine roared smoothly as it idled, a sound that German drivers secretly envied. Unteroffizier Klaus Weber climbed into the cab for a closer look, sliding across the worn leather bench seat. He turned the steering wheel, tested the brakes, and fiddled with the gearshift. Each control felt intuitive, almost comforting in its simplicity. "It's like they built this for people who actually drive trucks," he muttered, half to himself. The realization struck him like a blow. German trucks were complex, often finicky, and required mechanics who could navigate labyrinthine engine designs. The GMC required none of that. It was as if every American engineer had anticipated the battlefield, crafting a vehicle that needed minimal training to operate effectively under any conditions. The mechanics began running tests, dragging makeshift loads behind the truck, pushing it over rutted roads and mud-strewn fields. Time and again, it handled flawlessly. Not one component failed, not one bolt loosened, not one wheel stuck. Soldiers who had spent weeks cursing their own vehicles now watched in silent awe. The contrast was stark. German trucks struggled, slowed by terrain and mechanical failures, while this single American machine moved as if the road itself bent to its will. As they worked, conversations drifted to the factories back home. How many GMC trucks were being produced each month? How many would roll into Europe before Germany could stop them? The answer was sobering. Thousands, tens of thousands. The industrial might of the United States dwarfed anything Germany could muster. And it wasn't just numbers. It was design philosophy, accessibility, and reliability that made these machines unbeatable. The mechanics felt a gnawing unease. No matter how hard they tried, duplicating this level of engineering would be impossible. Klaus paused for a moment and looked at the camera. If anyone were watching, where are you watching this from? Drop a comment below. It's incredible to think about how one truck can reveal the scale of an entire war. He chuckled, shaking his head. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel. We've only just begun unraveling the story of this GMC and its impact on the Wehrmacht. By afternoon, the group had begun disassembling parts of the truck, examining the suspension, the drivetrain, and the engine in meticulous detail. Notes were taken, sketches made, and mental calculations recorded. They debated whether German factories could ever replicate such simplicity and efficiency. The answer became painfully clear: they could not. Materials were scarce, designs were complex, and the German industrial base was stretched thin from years of attrition. As the sun began to set over the northern French countryside, the mechanics leaned against their own vehicles, glancing back at the GMC. Its presence was more than mechanical, it was psychological. This truck, abandoned and unguarded, symbolized everything Germany was failing to achieve: simplicity, reliability, and production on a scale the Reich could no longer match. In that quiet moment, a somber realization settled over the group. They were not witnessing just a captured vehicle. They were witnessing the undeniable evidence that the war was slipping away, one American truck at a time. The following day, the mechanics began experimenting further with the captured GMC, testing not just its power, but its versatility. Supplies were loaded onto the truck: crates of ammunition, barrels of fuel, and even a few wounded soldiers who had been evacuated from nearby skirmishes. Each time, the truck performed flawlessly. Where German trucks bogged down in mud or uneven terrain, the GMC handled it as if the ground itself bent to its will. The mechanics exchanged uneasy glances. It wasn't just strong, it was genius in design. Franz, one of the younger mechanics, could barely contain his excitement as he traced his fingers along the suspension system. "It's too simple," he said. "Everything is easy to reach, easy to repair. Even in the middle of a battlefield, anyone can keep this running." Klaus nodded gravely. "It's not just a truck. It's a weapon of logistics." The more they examined it, the more they realized that this single vehicle symbolized the industrial and engineering supremacy of the United States, a supremacy Germany could no longer challenge. The conversation inevitably turned to replication. Could German factories, strained under constant Allied bombing and material shortages, ever produce something comparable? The answer was a grim shake of the head. Not without vast resources and time, both of which Germany lacked. Each component, Each carefully engineered part of the GMC was a reminder of the gulf separating American and German production capabilities. This realization settled over the group like a shadow. Victory was slipping away, not because of battlefield failures, but because of machines the enemy could rely on every time. Klaus suddenly turned to the camera, a serious look in his eyes. Where are you watching this from? Let us know in the comments. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories from World War II. The words felt almost like a confession, a way to share the weight of their discovery with the world. By mid-afternoon, the mechanics had begun disassembling the truck piece by piece. They measured, sketched, and catalogued every detail. From the easily accessible engine to the simple yet durable drivetrain, everything screamed efficiency. The manual inside the toolbox was a revelation. It contained step-by-step instructions for maintenance, troubleshooting, and repair, all printed clearly in English. No guesswork, no cryptic diagrams, no overly complex engineering. It was designed to keep the vehicle moving under the harshest conditions. A concept that seemed almost alien to German engineers accustomed to painstakingly intricate designs. As they worked, a deeper understanding emerged. This wasn't just about one truck or even one convoy. Every GMC on the road represented an unstoppable force, a rolling embodiment of Allied industrial might. Germany could destroy armies in the field, but the steady, relentless output of American factories could not be halted. Each truck carried supplies, ammunition, and soldiers forward, ensuring that the war machine never slowed. By sunset, the mechanics leaned back, exhausted but awed. The GMC stood silently on the roadside, its metal frame gleaming in the fading light. It was more than a machine, it was a harbinger. The group knew they were witnessing the evidence that the Reich was on a losing path, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Don't forget to subscribe. Klaus muttered to the camera one last time for the day. You'll want to see what comes next when more of these trucks roll into France. The war isn't just fought with guns, it's fought with machines like this. The morning after the initial tests, the 276th Infantry Division mechanics decided to take the GMC further. They hooked it to makeshift trailers, loaded it with ammunition crates, fuel barrels, and even sandbags to simulate the weight of a fully stocked convoy. The truck did not falter. Every gear shift was smooth, every turn predictable, and the six-cylinder engine hummed with a reliability that German trucks could only dream of. The engineers whispered among themselves, exchanging concerned glances. This wasn't just a truck, it was a symbol of industrial superiority, a tangible reminder that the Reich was losing the war long before the soldiers in the field realized it. One mechanic, Franz Müller, climbed into the cab and studied the dashboard, tracing his fingers along the simple, clear gauges. Every control is labeled. Even someone who's never driven one could figure it out, he muttered, almost in disbelief. Klaus Weber, leaning against the hood, nodded. That's what makes it dangerous. Not firepower, not armor. It's simplicity, reliability, a machine that works under any conditions. The realization settled over the group like a cold wind. They weren't just dealing with a vehicle. They were confronting the embodiment of American engineering philosophy, mass-produced, robust, and supremely functional. The conversation soon shifted to production numbers. How many of these trucks were being built every month in Detroit? And how many more would reach European battlefields before Germany could even respond? The mechanics quickly realized that the number was staggering. Thousands, tens of thousands. The industrial might of the United States dwarfed the German war effort. And it wasn't just about quantity. Each GMC was designed to be maintained and repaired easily, minimizing downtime and maximizing utility on the battlefield. Klaus paused and looked directly into the camera. Where are you watching this from? Drop a comment below, we'd love to know. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more World War II stories. The reminder felt almost necessary. This was a story too important to keep to themselves. By noon, the mechanics had begun examining the truck's design in meticulous detail. The suspension system was strong yet simple, capable of handling heavy loads without complex maintenance. The drivetrain was robust and accessible, built for efficiency, not style. Even the toolbox attached to the running board revealed an attention to detail rarely seen in German designs. Standard wrenches, pliers, and a manual with clear illustrations meant that even a novice could perform field repairs. As the day wore on, discussions among the men became more somber. They spoke quietly about the implications of what they had discovered. Germany might still hold territory, but it was clear that they were being outproduced, out-engineered, and outpaced. This single GMC truck had proven what years of reports and intelligence briefings had hinted at. The industrial might of the Allies was a weapon in itself, and no battlefield heroics could overcome it. Toward evening, Klaus once again addressed the camera, a note of urgency in his voice. Subscribe to the channel and stay tuned. These trucks are just the beginning. The Americans are rolling them into Europe faster than we can count, and each one is another step closer to victory. You won't want to miss what happens next. By sunset, the mechanics gathered around the GMC, its steel frame glinting in the fading light. They understood, perhaps for the first time, that they were not just examining a vehicle, they were witnessing the embodiment of a nation's industrial power. And as the shadows lengthened over the northern French countryside, an unspoken truth settled over the group. The war was already slipping away, one American truck at a time. The following morning, the mechanics decided to push the GMC further. They arranged a mock convoy along a rural French road, loading each truck to its maximum capacity. Ammunition, rations, fuel drums, and medical supplies were stacked precariously, yet the GMC didn't falter. Every turn, every hill climb, every dip in the uneven terrain showcased the truck's unmatched engineering. German trucks would have sputtered, gears grinding and wheels stuck in the mud, but this American marvel powered forward effortlessly. The men exchanged uneasy glances. The realization of what they were witnessing was beginning to weigh heavily. Franz, always the most curious of the group, began cataloging every aspect of the GMC. From the engine block to the leaf springs, every component was designed for simplicity and longevity. It's almost insulting, he muttered, half in awe, half in frustration. Everything is labeled. Everything is accessible. Even a soldier with no mechanical experience could keep this running. Klaus leaned against the truck, eyes scanning the horizon. It's more than a truck, he said quietly. It's a symbol of industrial dominance. A rolling testament to what Germany will never achieve under these conditions. The men began to realize that the GMC wasn't just about moving supplies. It represented a fundamental shift in modern warfare. Where German logistics were painstaking, slow, and prone to breakdowns, American supply lines were unstoppable, efficient, and resilient. Each GMC was a cog in a massive machine that kept the Allied armies moving, firing, and advancing. Every battle Germany won on the front lines could be undone by these trucks simply delivering reinforcements and equipment faster than the Wehrmacht could respond. Klaus glanced at the camera again, breaking the fourth wall for the second time. Where are you watching this from? Drop a comment, we'd love to hear. And make sure to subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories from World War II. His tone wasn't just casual. It carried urgency. This story was too important to miss. Too revealing of the hidden forces that shaped the war. By late afternoon, the mechanics had begun dismantling parts of the truck to study the finer details. The drivetrain, axles, and braking systems were marvels of simplicity, designed to be repaired in minutes under battlefield conditions. Even the tires were rugged yet interchangeable, built to endure rough terrain without complex maintenance. The manual in the toolbox offered clear instructions with diagrams that left little room for error. Another stark contrast to the overly complicated German designs that often required specialized tools and knowledge. As they worked, the men discussed the implications of what they had learned. Germany could win tactical battles, but the broader war was being lost to production lines, assembly plants, and machines like the GMC. Each truck was a force multiplier, each one ensuring the continuous flow of men, munitions, and supplies. The Allied war effort wasn't just about bravery or strategy. It was about machines that never stopped, that could endure anything, and that required minimal human intervention to keep moving. Toward evening, Klaus addressed the camera one last time for the day. Don't forget to subscribe. The story of these trucks isn't over, and neither is the war. Every GMC we capture or examine is another step in understanding why the Allies can't be stopped. As twilight settled over the fields of northern France, the mechanics looked at the GMC one last time. The truck wasn't just a vehicle. It was a revelation, a warning, and a symbol of a future Germany could no longer control. The war, they realized, was being lost long before it reached the battlefield, and there was no turning back. The next day, the mechanics decided to test the GMC under extreme conditions. They drove it over rocky fields, through mud-soaked paths, and across narrow, winding country roads. Every obstacle the German trucks would have struggled with seemed insignificant to the GMC. Wheels spun with unrelenting power, gears shifted smoothly, and the engine roared with a confidence that left the men speechless. Franz wiped sweat from his brow and muttered, "It's as if this truck was made for war itself." Klaus nodded silently, eyes fixed on the horizon, already calculating how many of these trucks the Allies could produce each month. As they pushed the GMC harder, the men began to discuss the broader implications. Germany had sophisticated tanks, artillery, and aircraft, but logistics were its Achilles heel. Supply lines were slow, vehicles broke down, and maintenance was a nightmare. Meanwhile, the Allies were producing a fleet of trucks that could carry supplies faster, farther, and with fewer mechanical failures than anything Germany could muster. Every successful mission the GMC completed was a stark reminder that industrial capacity often mattered more than battlefield valor. Klaus paused and turned to the camera, addressing the audience directly. Where are you watching this from? Let us know in the comments. And while you're at it, hit subscribe. These stories are just getting started, and you don't want to miss a single one. His tone carried a mix of awe and urgency. This wasn't just a story about a truck. It was a lesson in how war was won long before soldiers ever set foot on the battlefield. Later that afternoon, the men examined the truck's interior and tools once more. Every wrench, every gauge, every clearly labeled part reflected a philosophy of accessibility and simplicity. Maintenance manuals with detailed illustrations made repairs almost foolproof. The GMC didn't just move supplies. It empowered its operators, allowing even untrained soldiers to perform essential maintenance under pressure. Franz shook his head. It's like the Americans thought of everything. Even we, trained mechanics, are impressed. The discussion inevitably turned to production. How many GMCs had already reached France? How many more would arrive in the coming months? The numbers were staggering. These trucks were not just tools. They were force multipliers, enabling the Allies to outpace, outmaneuver, and outlast the Wehrmacht. Every captured or studied GMC reinforced a single truth. Germany could fight on the front lines, but it was losing the war in the factories, in Detroit and across the Atlantic. As the sun began to set, Klaus gave another reminder to the audience. Subscribe to the channel. Trust me, the next chapters of this story will blow your mind. These trucks are only the beginning of the story of industrial warfare. By twilight, the mechanics gathered around the GMC one last time for the day. Its steel frame gleamed under the fading light, and its engine, still warm, hinted at countless miles of relentless service. The men understood that this wasn't just a vehicle. It was a symbol of American ingenuity, resilience, and the unstoppable tide of Allied production. And as night fell over northern France, one thought haunted them all. Germany's defeat wasn't coming. It was already underway. By the following morning, the mechanics had devised a new plan. They would test the GMC's endurance on the roughest terrain they could find, marshes, hills, and rocky paths that would have stopped a German truck dead in its tracks. The convoy moved cautiously, engines humming, tires crunching over gravel and mud alike. With each mile, the contrast between German engineering and American ingenuity became clearer. The GMC seemed almost alive, adapting to each obstacle as though it were anticipating the challenges ahead. Franz, ever meticulous, noted down every detail in his field journal. Look at the suspension, he said, pointing to the massive leaf springs. It's absorbing shocks that would have destroyed our trucks, and yet the engine runs smoothly, even under load. Klaus, riding shotgun in the lead vehicle, glanced around at the other men, their expressions a mix of awe and concern. We need to think strategically, he said quietly. This is more than a truck. It's a rolling supply chain. Every mile it covers extends the reach of the Allies. Every delivery it makes strengthens forces we cannot stop. At this point, Klaus turned to the camera. Where are you watching this from? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that reveal the hidden side of World War II, he said. His voice carried the weight of revelation. This wasn't just a mechanical analysis. It was a window into the shifting tides of war. A lesson in how industrial power could shape the outcome of battles long before soldiers clashed on the front lines. As the convoy pressed on, they came across a small village where locals had gathered, staring curiously at the massive American trucks. One elderly man shook his head, muttering to himself about the scale of the machines and the efficiency with which they moved. The mechanics realized that even civilians recognized the symbolic power of the GMC. This wasn't merely a vehicle. It was a demonstration of the unstoppable industrial might behind the Allies. A tangible reminder that Germany's resources were dwindling while America's capacity seemed limitless. Throughout the day, the men dismantled and reassembled components of the GMC under various conditions, simulating battlefield repairs. Each test confirmed what they had already suspected. The truck's design prioritized functionality, simplicity, and reliability. Parts were standardized, easily replaceable, and clearly marked. Even soldiers with minimal mechanical knowledge could maintain and operate these machines, ensuring that supply lines remained uninterrupted. Toward the evening, Klaus addressed the audience again. Make sure you're subscribed. This story of the GMC is just getting started. These trucks were more than machines. They were a strategic advantage that Germany could never match. As twilight fell, the convoy returned to their base, engines still humming, tires coated with mud and dirt. The mechanics stared at the GMC with a mixture of admiration and unease. Every mile traveled, every obstacle overcome, every repair made reinforced a single truth. The Allies were not just winning battles, they were winning the logistical war. And in northern France, amidst the remnants of past skirmishes, the realization settled in. The tide of war had already turned, and there was no reversing it. The next morning, the mechanics took the GMC to a stretch of rugged countryside, one that German trucks had consistently struggled to traverse. Deep mud puddles, eroded slopes, and uneven terrain tested every aspect of the truck's design. Yet with each challenge, the GMC continued its relentless march forward. Tires gripped, suspension absorbed shocks, and the engine purred under load. Even seasoned German mechanics were forced to admit it. Nothing in their arsenal came close to this level of efficiency and resilience. Franz and Klaus paused to observe. "Look at the acceleration," Klaus remarked. "Even fully loaded, it climbs hills that would stall our own vehicles. And the brakes, smooth, responsive. It's as if it was built to anticipate every possible scenario on a battlefield." The two men shared a glance, an unspoken acknowledgement of the implications. Germany might have advanced tanks, but without reliable supply trucks, those tanks could only go as far as logistics allowed. And these GMCs, multiplying in numbers each day, were rendering the Wehrmacht's supply chain increasingly irrelevant. The discussion naturally shifted to the broader picture. Germany's industrial capabilities, once considered formidable, were now being overshadowed by the sheer volume of American production. Detroit, Flint, and other industrial centers were creating fleets of trucks that could outlast, outmaneuver, and outpace German vehicles. The mechanics realized they were not just witnessing a mechanical marvel. They were observing a tangible turning point in the war. Every mile the GMC covered, every supply it delivered, chipped away at Germany's capacity to resist. Klaus turned to the camera. "Where are you watching this from? Comment below, we want to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe. Stories like this, about the machines that changed the war, are coming every week." His tone was earnest, filled with the urgency of someone who knew the stakes involved. This wasn't just history. It was a lesson in foresight, industrial power, and the quiet ways that wars are won. Later in the day, the mechanics examined the truck's interior once again. The six-cylinder engine, toolkits, spare parts, and manuals were designed for ease of use under pressure. Even untrained personnel could maintain it in the field. "This is genius," Franz whispered. "It's not just a truck, it's an extension of the soldier, a force multiplier in metal and steel." Klaus nodded, imagining the thousands of GMCs that would soon traverse European roads, supplying armies, equipment, and morale. As the convoy continued its testing, the men reflected on what this meant for the future of warfare. Speed, reliability, and adaptability were not just tactical advantages, they were strategic ones. And in this quiet corner of northern France, amidst mud and the echo of past skirmishes, the reality became clear. Germany had already lost the war long before the tanks and guns could be fully deployed. The industrial power of the Allies, embodied in these trucks, had already written the outcome. By evening, the mechanics gathered one last time around the GMC. Mud splattered, engines still warm, it stood as a testament to ingenuity and resilience. Klaus addressed the audience for one final reminder that day. Subscribe to the channel. These trucks, these machines, they tell a story about the real backbone of victory in World War II. Don't miss what comes next. The night settled over the French countryside, and the GMC remained, silent yet powerful, a harbinger of the unstoppable march of Allied logistics and industrial might. The men understood it. Germany's defeat was not on the battlefield. It was in the factories they could no longer match. By the following morning, the full weight of the discovery had settled on the Wehrmacht mechanics. The GMC trucks were more than just vehicles. They were symbols of a war Germany could no longer win. The combination of durability, simplicity, and sheer production scale meant that the Allies could move men, weapons, and supplies faster and farther than any German convoy could hope to match. Every mile traveled by a GMC was a mile closer to victory for the Allies. Franz and Klaus walked along the convoy line one last time, inspecting the trucks that had so thoroughly demonstrated American industrial supremacy. "It's almost frightening," Franz muttered, brushing mud off the fender of a particularly large deuce and a half. "These trucks will never stop coming. We can't compete." Klaus nodded grimly. the reality sinking in. They weren't just observing machinery. They were witnessing the physical manifestation of the enemy's advantage. Klaus turned to the camera, addressing the audience one final time. If you've enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We share the untold stories of World War II, showing you the hidden factors that determine the outcome of battles. He paused, adding a personal touch. By the way, where are you watching this from? Let us know in the comments. We love seeing how far our stories travel. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the GMC trucks rumbled back toward Allied lines. Engines steady, tires carrying supplies and soldiers alike. The mechanics remained behind, their notebooks filled with observations, their minds heavy with understanding. Germany's defeat wasn't inevitable because of poor soldiers or flawed strategy. It was inevitable because the Allies' industrial might had created machines like the GMC that could not be stopped. In the quiet of northern France, amidst mud, wreckage, and the echoes of past skirmishes, the truth was undeniable. The war had been lost long before these mechanics laid eyes on the trucks. The GMC wasn't just a truck. It was the symbol of a turning tide, a rolling testament to the unstoppable force of Allied industry.